Okay, I switched from this to this because I kind of need a cigarette right now. Um, so let's see what Talk to Me About Life says. I listened to your stuff about the authorship of the Gospels and dates, but I felt like I talked about the main bits in responding to your part one response. I don't want to make these longer than necessary for both those things. You know what? I'd actually be happy to talk to you via Hangout. Again, you're one of the few atheists that are concerned about dialogue and the truth. There's a very strange phenomenon out there, and has been for a while, where about 80% of the anti-theists that I run into, and I'm not calling you an anti-theist, just seek to win a debate instead of having the truth being the main concern. And when I first started making videos as an anti-theist, which you can still find my old channels on here, it frustrated me of you can make a better case for the non-deity of Christ, dealing with him as an historical figure. But let's jump right into it. Number, I'm guessing one, but there's a pound sign there, or number sign there. Is there a difference between canonical versus authorial text? Well, you have homolegomena and antilegomena, and homolegomena always out is always taken more seriously than antilegomena. Homolegomena would be the first four Gospels, the letters of Paul, Acts, and possibly First John and First Peter. The antilegomena would be Second Peter, James, Hebrews, Second, Third John, Second Peter. The point of the question is, from me, was trying to zero in on how do you know that the texts we have, according to the variants and copyist errors, is the original text from the hand of, let's say, Mark or Luke, etc. Oh, very easily. It's kind of like genetics, right? And this might be a longer video than I anticipated, right? I can get a sheet of paper. I'll do it on the back side of this Logos thing. Hopefully you can still see this. Alright. Now, let's say you have the autograph. The autograph is the original, right? And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 copies. Now, during the persecution, these get wiped out, right? Now, you have copies of these, copies of these, copies of these, and mistakes get made, right? And since it's a religious text, they keep copying them down, right? Until we get to what gets called Western. And Byzantine. These are in Greek. And then you also have Alexandrian. This is also known as Antiochian, right? And these tend to be much later, right? And the copyist errors are sometimes blatant. But the Alexandria text type, since it got run over by the Muslims in the 600s, and the sands of Egypt preserve papyrus very well. or even vellum. So we can go back and see, oh, that was the original one. And that's why your NASBs, such as this, will have margin notes all throughout here. See? Variance. And if you look into it and say, well, 30% of the manuscripts say this, 70% of the manuscripts say that, right? And they're usually not very big. The problem is that there's a group of KJV onlyists which only trust the Byzantine text type, which come from about 1,000 years later, because they read almost identically. Well, when the only people making manuscript evidence since the Saracens had surrounded Constantinople, they almost all look identical. And despite what anybody tells you, the KJV was a critical text. It compared 6 different manuscripts, whereas our modern day have over 6,000 Greek manuscripts, not to mention using Latin, Syriac, Slavonic, and Ethiopic. So no, there's no shocking changes in any of these. And we also have what's called the Rylands Papyrus text. It's RYLAND Papyrus, also known as P52, and that comes from between 105 and 115. So it could be an autograph or a second generation. And it's about the size of a credit card. Should I actually dare whip out a credit card of mine? No. I'll use something this size. And it's got writing on this side as well as on this side. And it matches perfectly with a copy of John, a Greek copy of John that we have today. So, no. It's not like the Quran where there's massive amounts of variance. Although that doesn't get talked about because you try telling a fanatical Muslim that the Quran is not the perfect dictated word of God, when Christians never believe that neither the New or Old Testament was dictation. And also you're speaking to somebody who agrees with documentary hypothesis. There's different copyist errors. Is the original text from the hand of, let's say, Mark or Luke? Well, remember, these things are getting burned and destroyed. We don't know, although the Apocalypse of John, we might have the original because it says right on the back of this scroll, and the oldest extant version of the Apocalypse of John that we have is written on the back of a Torah scroll. Are we uncovering the texts of author or recovering a community text of canonical text? And does the answer of those questions affect how we approach the context of the Gospels from a historical point of view? Yes, absolutely. Continually. I mean, they're pulling us stuff up out of the sand all the time. Now, it's been hard since the last 20 years because of the insane war that's going on in North Africa and the Middle East, and the Muslims enjoy burning the text of the New Testament because they believe it's corrupted, the Injil. Does the answer to those questions affect how we approach the Gospels? from what you say, if the text isn't authoritative, but instead the church that is, doesn't it make even more important to be sure that the text is the text of authoritative disciples and or the church and not other randoms? I'm not sure what that means, but remember the Gnostics had their own. The Gnostics would begin their books by saying, yeah, that's what Christ's apostles taught, but we saw him resurrected. So we have the true gospel, just like if you read the secret gospel of John, secret gospel of James, they get pulled aside and say, well, I'm going to tell you the true nature of salvation because I lied to everybody else. And then I'll get to your second question later on. I'm going to have to do this paragraph by paragraph.